My Line. Brought to you by Kellogg's, the folks who give you the widest choice of cereals in the whole wide world. All the great grains in the forms you like best. Yours from Kellogg's of Battle Creek. Now let's all play What's My Line?
And now let's meet our award-winning What's My Line panel. First, the popular columnist whose voice of Broadway appears in papers from coast to coast, Miss Dorothy Kilgallen.
And now it's a great pleasure to welcome back one of our favorite guest panelists, Robert Q. Lewis.
Drop this on the way. To my left, a most delightful young lady and the best darn tie straightener on this show, Miss Arlene Francis.
And now a gentleman who is terribly happy because he has just published what promises to be the hit of this season, the Jerome Weidman book, The Enemy Camp, Mr. Bennett, Cerf.
Thank you, Arlene. And now our panel moderator, who knows every word in the lexicon, probably because he walks up from Grand Central Station on Lexington Avenue.
Ooh, la.
Our boy, what's his name again?
John Charles Daly.
John Charles Daly.
Well, you can see what spring and summer have done for the panel. We hope so, anyway, because we have some very interesting occupations for them tonight, all brought here by some very nice people who hope with me that they can puzzle the panel completely and stump them. We'll also have a famous mystery guest before our panel a little bit later in the show. We'll meet our first challenger after this. Let's see what we can do with our first challenger. Will you come in and sign in, please?
David H.
Brown. Is that right? Just for fun, because you did put the H there. What does the H stand for?
It's Welsh. Howell.
Howell?
Howell.
Howell.
Welsh, yes.
And what does it mean? Does it have a translate into something?
No, it doesn't, actually. It's just a Welsh name.
Oh, fine. Where are you from?
Redondo Beach, California.
Redondo Beach, California. Well, you have come a long way. Mr. Brown, the panel, Mr. Brown, will you join me over here now? Tell me, coming all the way from Redondo Beach, are you aware of the system by which we keep score on this here program?
Oh, yes, we see it in Redondo Beach, too, you know.
Fine. On that basis, let's let the folks at home and those who are with us in the audience tonight know exactly what your line is. All right, panel, Mr. Brown is salaried. And let's begin the general questioning with Arlene Francis.
Mr. Brown, do you work for a profit-making organization?
I do.
You're wearing a blazer, which is very becoming to you. Do you have anything to do with the out-of-doors, Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Whatever you do, you perform out-of-doors, do you?
Generally, yes.
Is it a service of some kind?
No, I don't think so.
Well, now, if I may, a small conference.
Right, it is.
Actually, what I just had to explain that in our broad terminologies, we would consider this a service, yes.
Mr. Brown, is there anything sportsmanlike about what you do? I do hope so.
Vaguely, I suppose.
So vaguely, as a matter of fact, that in
That I'm going to get a
fear
no.
of misleading the panel, we'll give you a no. That's
Thanks
one
a lot.
down and 9 to go, Mr. Cerf.
Mr. Brown, Redondo Beach suggests water, the Pacific Ocean. Do your activities include any use or reference or connection with water?
Definitely, yes.
Oh, they do. Do you sometimes wear, in the carrying out of your duties, a uniform quite different than the one you're wearing tonight?
No.
In other words, I would have to put the question in its full frame of reference. You would perform your service as you are dressed now and would
You
not
could
wear any
perform it.
other costume?
I certainly wouldn't, as I am dressed now, but I wouldn't wear a uniform.
Well, now, we use a
didn't
uniform.
ask.
Let me have a small conference.
I'd like to have one with him myself.
She looks like it.
Yeah.
I think, Bennett, that we will have to agree on the specifics of exactly what Mr. Brown now tells me he wears, that you'd get a no. That's 2 down and 8 to go, Miss Kilgallen.
Could I get the question back? Because now I'm thoroughly confused.
The question was basically, did Mr. Brown wear a uniform, something other than normal clothing? Mr. Brown does say he would not wear his blazer to do his work, but at the same time, he is dressed normally for workaday world.
In other words, it wouldn't be any great clue if you came in wearing exactly what you wore to work last Thursday.
Not at all.
We wouldn't gain a thing by it. So I take it you don't go into the water. If you can help it.
On occasion. On occasion, I...
With his clothes on,
With a suit on?
No, but that is not the norm. Only on occasion does he go into the
I
water.
see.
Actually, it's not required, right?
Right.
Are you on any sort of means of transportation when you're near the water?
No, I'm afraid not.
3 down and 7 to go, Mr. Lewis.
Just out of curiosity, Mr. Brown, does your work in any way entertain?
Yes.
Would the means toward that entertainment involve others than human beings? Would others than human beings be involved in what you do?
Oh, yes.
Would there be, animals? Some form of animal life?
Yes.
Well, I don't know much about Redondo Beach. Do you work then for a profit-making organization which might be compared to an aquarium or a zoo or something of that sort?
Yes, I do.
Well, I just have to have a while. Are you a keeper or a trainer of animals of some specific type?
Yes.
They are in the fish family, I trust.
No.
Mammal family.
4 down. 6 to go, Miss Francis. You
Well-
fell into that one.
Are they in the mammal family?
Yes.
But they're seagoing mammals,
Yes.
Aren't we all?
Would any of us ever wear a coat that might come from one of these animals?
I'm afraid not.
No octopus coat.
5 down and 5 to go, Mr. Cerf.
Then you have nothing to do with seals. Well, I
No.
mean,
Not in this particular...
not in this one. But are these animals that, would it be possibly in the walrus or whale class?
Yes.
Which one? Well, to start in at the top, have you anything to do with whales?
Yes.
You don't train whales. Do you? You train whales? How can you train whales?
You don't train whales. I got to flip all the cards, as a matter of fact, because he does train whales. And that
How
takes
can
a
you
bit of
train
flipping.
whales?
What are you training
Tell us,
to do?
actually, this is Mr. Brown's story to tell, but he has a whale, a 15-footer.
A what whale?
This is a real whale, a pilot whale. In fact, I'm happy to say it's the only whale in the world in captivity at the present time. We keep it at Marineland of the Pacific in California. It's a very fabulous animal. We've trained it to jump over hurdles, leap completely out of the water, to sing, to punch a punching bag, to wear a hat, and wave goodbye, and several other interesting little tricks. It'll even suffer a man to ride on its back.
It's
And
a sissy whale.
It's a singing whale.
It's the prince of whales.
It's a sissy whale, it's a lady whale, and we call her Bubbles.
Bubbles.
Known as Elvis Bubbles the Whale.
Bubble
Yes, sir.
When she
Shinazi
does a
whale.
soft shoe, I want to see that.
And I want you next winter to watch Arlene coming across the stage in her whale coat.
And carrying the whale.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Brown. We had a
Thank
very
you,
good
Mr.
time.
Bennett.
Please come and see the whale. Very good, panel. You're on your mettle tonight. I thought we'd give you a real rough time with that one. Let's see what you can do with the second challenge. Would you come in and sign in, please? Jean? Jean Farrell, is that right? And, is it Miss or Mrs. Farrell?
The latter.
Mrs. Farrell, and
That's
where are
right.
you from?
From Cincinnati, Ohio.
Cincinnati, Ohio. Well, it's nice to have you here with us. Mrs. Farrell, the panel. Panel. Miss Farrell, would you join me over here, please? You know how we keep score?
Yes, I do.
Well, that's fine. Let's let the folks here in the audience and the people at home know exactly what your line is. All right. Panel, Mrs. Farrell is self-employed, and let's begin the general questioning with Robert Q. Lewis.
Miss or Mrs. Farrell?
Mrs. Farrell.
More's the pity. Mrs. Farrell, do you render a service?
Yes, I do.
Is this a service for both men and women?
Yes, it is.
Well, the logical question is, when could I avail myself of your services?
It requires a very special occasion.
A very special occasion.
But you could.
I don't know if I'll let you know later, John. Mrs. Farrell, does what you do require more than a high school education?
No, it doesn't.
1 down and 9 to go, Miss Francis.
Oh, I thought I would get a yes, it does not. Oh, no, of course not. Well, never mind. I haven't been here for so long. Please
You're not here now, old boy.
I know.
Miss Francis?
Mrs. Farrell, you too look healthy and out of doorsy. Is what you do an occupation that keeps you out of doors?
No, it isn't.
That's 2 down and 8 to go, Mr. Cerf.
Mrs. Farrell, do you have the privilege of instructing or advising people in any way?
Yes, to a certain extent.
What's that face, John?
The question was so broad that it would be difficult to give you an answer that was exact. But I want to give you an exact answer because
Yes.
I don't want to mislead you.
Well,
Would
then I'll
you like
narrow
to
it
put
down
the
a bit.
question again?
Yes. Mrs. Farrell, do you teach or instruct in any way?
No, I don't.
That's 3 down and 7 to go, Miss Kilgallen.
Satisfied, John?
When people avail themselves of your services, Mrs. Farrell, do you speak to them? Yes, I do. Do they come to you both sexes at a time? Yes, they do. Is there anything romantic about their coming? Not at all. What? No, not at all.
4 down and 6 to go, Mr. Lewis.
Do you then not work for a government agency?
No, she's self-employed.
Oh, I beg your pardon. See, I'm not here. Is there, the people come to you, both men and women come to you, are these people attached to each other?
What?
I mean, by that,
Siamese?
hardly physically, Mrs. Farrell, but are they married people who come to you?
You mean, do they have to be married? Is this a requirement of their...
Can they be? Thank you, Dorothy.
Yes, they can
Well,
be.
then don't be misled. People can come to see Mrs. Farrell. They can come singly. They can come together. They can be married. They can be single. They can be going with one another. They could hate each other's temperaments. You never can tell.
I think you got a yes.
I think so. In your work, Mrs. Farrell, you work indoors as opposed to outdoors. There is no special garb required for what you do. Is that correct?
That's right. There is no special garb, no.
To do what you do, would your training necessarily involve more than 6 months of study?
It would not.
It would
That
not.
makes it 5 down and 5 to go, Miss Francis.
You work indoors. Do you work in a large enclosure?
No?
No.
No.
6 down and 4 to go, Mr. Cerf.
Does the service that you give, Mrs. Farrell, involve either food, drink, or clothing?
No, it doesn't.
7 down and 3 to go, Miss Kilgallen. I'm going to give you 1 minute more.
May we assume, Mrs. Farrell, that there is no product that's important to your work?
Yes,
You are
yes,
you may primarily a service person. You talk to these people who come to you. Do you also do something else for them? Yes. Do you write anything down? Yes, I write. And you say that it's a special occasion when they come.
Well, she said it would be a special occasion when Mr. Lewis came. This all by itself would make it a... Well, there you are.
always a special occasion when he comes.
They will come to see Mrs. Farrell because they have a special
Reason.
mission which they wish to be executed.
And do you accomplish this particular thing while they are there rather than afterwards?
Not necessarily.
No. 8 down and 2 to go. I'm going to give you 25 seconds more.
This doesn't only happen in Ohio, Mrs. Farrell. There are people like you all over the country, are there?
Yes.
Yes.
Can we have a conference a minute?
10 seconds.
What do you
With
think?
babies.
What about something like a private detective or summons service?
Not
No?
Mrs. Farrell. No.
Private
Okay.
detective over
Maybe.
I've
which
heard
one,
enough.
babies?
I'm turning all the cards over because you might as well know now that Mrs. Farrell is a bill collector. We'll meet tonight's mystery guest in just a moment, but first, here is a word from our alternate sponsor. Come to the special feature of our program, the appearance of our mystery celebrity, for which my friends on the panel are blindfolded. Blindfolds all in place, panel?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Good. Will you come in, mystery challenger, and sign in, please? Panel, you know, in the case of our mystery celebrity, you go to a different form of questioning. You will ask one question at a time, in turn, moving clockwise. And let's begin with Bennett, Cerf.
Those are very intriguing whistles. Would you say that you are even more curvaceous than the two ladies on this panel? Huh?
Yes. I'm sorry that it's necessary for the chair to amend that answer. You get a no. 1 down and 9 to go, Miss Kilgallen.
Are you an entertainer who does something other than just acting?
Yes. Mr. Lewis?
Are you also a singer?
Yes.
He's a dubious singer.
Mr. Doobie.
Mr. Dubious. You a television personality?
Yes. Mr. Cerf?
Do you sometimes sing songs about crying and things like that?
Who doesn't?
Was one of your big hit songs, did it have something to do with crying?
No. 2 down and 8 to go, Miss Kilgallen.
Okay, are you Julius La Rosa?
No. That's 3 down and 7 to go, Mr. Lewis.
Is it Tony Bennett?
No. 4 down and 6 to go, Miss Fred.
Are you going to be on the air as a summer replacement? How do I know? I just made it up.
Yes. Mr. Cerf?
Oh, well.
Are you a member of a very famous theatrical family?
Yes.
I pass.
Well, I think, are you one of the Williams? Are you Andy Williams?
Did you? Don't take your blindfold off, Robert.
All right.
That's 5 down and 5 to go, Miss Francis.
Are you not quite as bold as another member of your family?
Oh.
Yes. No.
What would you say your Crosby rating was? With Bob Crosby? Is it?
Bob Crosby?
I still think we should have made him say which one.
I did say Bob.
Robert.
I did say
Under
Bob.
the
Which one?
audience's- yeah,
Bob.
He said Robert, I believe.
Oh,
He
I
gave you
didn't
that
hear Robert.
distinguished
I said
bit,
Bob,
you know.
Honestly.
Yeah.
There are so many Crosbys in entertainment now.
They keep coming and more all the time.
It seems to me that reading a gentleman named Bill Slocum, you just
Oh,
got
yes.
back from Brussels, Europe?
No, I was in England.
In England. You didn't go to Brussels.
No, I didn't.
I think it was a very amusing column.
Oh, he's a wonderful guy, John.
Well, we've both known him a great time, but I think it must be pleasant for you to read a column like that, because the substance of it was that Mr. Bob Crosby is a very nice person, and to that we say amen. He is a very nice
Thank you,
person.
John. I think the nicest thing about it was that
I thought Bill Slocum wrote about, well, other things than people in show business. And when I met him, when I talked to him, it was entirely unsolicited. I didn't know that he would do a column on me.
Well, he sure did, man.
He did a wonderful column.
And
the
now
only thing is, he said one thing in there. He said, this might be the Crosby that people think Bing is. And luckily, Bing is fishing off of Alaska, else I'd blow my allowance.
Well, when he gets back, I was with Bing at his golf thing.
I was there with you, too.
Yeah, and you were out there.
We
fought it through together and had a wonderful time. Give both Miss Kathy and Bing my regards.
Oh, Kathy's wonderful.
Yeah. To clean up one or two small items here, because I think it's something we should note, your question was asked if Bob was a summer replacement. He is a most distinguished one. He's a summer replacement for a gentleman named Dr. Perry Como on another network whose initials are NBC on Saturday night.
I always follow the best singers.
Well, thank you, Robert. We had a wonderful
John.
time having you with us. Thanks a lot for coming. And we'll have another contestant after this word from our sponsor. Well, we have time for one more contestant. If you move quickly, will you come in and sign in, please? Lee Keener. Is that right, sir? How are you? Mr. Keener, where are you from?
Yuma, Arizona.
Yuma, Arizona. Mr. Keener, the panel. Senator Mr. Keener, will you join me here? You know how we keep score, sir?
I sure do. I've been watching your program a long while.
Thank you. Now let's let everybody except the panel everywhere know what your line is. Exactly. All right, panel, we will tell you that Mr. Keener is salaried, and let's begin the general questioning with Miss Dorothy Kilgallen.
Mr. Keener, you look rather indoorsy. Do you do most of your work indoors?
Indoors?
Uh-huh.
Well, sometimes. I can do it indoors or outdoors.
Oh, that's nice. Could anybody on this panel take advantage of your job?
Take advantages of
Oh, I don't
what
mean
you
of
do.
you, but I mean
think
of
so.
what you do.
Yeah.
Is it kind of a fun thing rather than deadly serious?
Yes, it's fun.
Well, is it fun for other people as well as you?
I hope so.
Do you deal with both sexes?
Yes.
Do they come to you?
Yes.
And do you do something for them while they're there?
Yes.
Do they come 2 by 2?
Do they come 2 by 2? Specifically, no. That's one down a night to
Did
go.
you hear what Arlene said? She said, I have a Noah's Ark complex.
Mr. Keener, you do work with human beings. You do work with human beings.
Yes, not whales.
Not whales. Oh. Is there any product connected with your work?
Connected with?
Well, is there a product involved in your work? Were I to go to Mr. Keener?
Not by the terms of our program. 2 down and 8 to go, Miss Francis.
Do you ever touch the people that come in contact with you?
Well, the nice ones.
Given no answer to that with no explanation. That's 3 down and 7 to go, Mr. Cerf.
Mr. Keener, do you ever have anything to do with the tourists or visitors who come to Arizona?
Yes.
Would you say that your work was definitely connected with tourists of some kind?
No, not definitely. 4 down and 6 to go. We've got time for about 2 questions.
Do they have gambling in Yuma?
Gambling in Yuma?
Well, don't look so shocked, John.
We've never heard of it in Yuma.
Oh.
5 down and 5 to go, Mr. Lewis.
Do you by any chance work for any branch of the government in Yuma?
Any branch of the government?
No.
No, okay.
6 down and 4 to go. I'm afraid we have to throw the towel in because we've run out of time, but you weren't close, I'm sorry to tell you. Mr. Keener is a one-man band. No, it's Mr. Music. Thank you very much, Mr. Keener.
John.
Band.
And on that happy note,
funny.
until next week, this is John Daly saying good night, Dorothy Kilgallen.
Good night, John. Good night, Bob. Come again. You are a great help.
Thank you, Dorothy. Good night. I want to put that man on my show tomorrow night. Is that all
Yeah.
right? Good night, Arlene.
Good night, and I'll straighten your tie anytime. Good night, Bennett.
Good night, John.
Good night, Bennett. And it's nice to have had you back with us, Robert Q.
Thanks.
Next week, by the way, Jack Lemmon will be here, warming that particular place on the panel. It'd be nice to have him back, too. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being with us on What's My Line?
If you'd like to attend our broadcast and see the panel and our guests in person, write for tickets to What's My Line, CBS Television, 485 Madison Avenue, New York, 22, New York. Transportation for contestants on What's My Line is arranged by American Airlines. What's My Line is a Mark Goodson, Bill Todman production in association with the CBS Television Network.